Last week, I was having coffee with a friend who works in venture capital. When the conversation turned to AI, he leaned in, his tone turning almost dismissive. "The race is over," he said. "The US has the foundational models, the top-tier chips. China is just playing catch-up with the volume game. It's a qualitative gap you can't engineer your way out of." He was so certain. To him, the blueprint for AI dominance was written in Silicon Valley, and everyone else was just following the instructions. But then I showed him a single statistic from a recent analyst report. It stated that Chinese tech giants are achieving AI model performance comparable to their US peers while spending only about 1/10 on capital expenditure. His confident expression faltered, just for a second, replaced by a flicker of genuine confusion. "How is that even possible?" he finally asked. That momentary shift, from absolute certainty to puzzled curiosity, caps the entire tension of this new technological Cold War. Because if the old rules about spending and access to the best tech no longer guarantee victory, then what does?
That is the pivotal question, isn't it? It's the moment the whole paradigm shifts.
It really is.
We've spent so long focusing on the inputs, the CapEx, the brand names of the chips, NVIDIA, and so on. We just assumed the output would be linear.
Right. You put in less money, less advanced hardware, you get a less advanced model. Simple.
Except it's not working out that way. The data, it shows this clear convergence in performance.
So that assumption is just proving to be wrong.
Completely wrong.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is not, just a brute force volume effort. It's a highly coordinated national strategy. It's designed specifically to find these asymmetrical advantages that just negate the need for dollar parity on hardware.
They're optimizing their entire system.
Their entire operating system, exactly. For efficiency, for speed, and for cost.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. Let's unpack this enormous mystery of the 1/10 cost. We've gone through a massive stack of analysis of national planning documents, and we've structured this around 3 interconnected pillars that really seem to unlock this incredible cost efficiency and speed.
And they have to be seen as interconnected. They work in concert, which is why the whole strategy is so potent.
So what's the first one?
First, you have the human element. We're calling it engineering the talent pipeline. This is where human capital isn't just a resource, it's framed as the first resource.
The first resource.
Second, we look at the hardware and data side of things, the infrastructure advantage. This is where we decode the cost efficiency through these technical breakthroughs and, leveraging huge national strengths.
And finally, the engine that keeps it all running, the money and the speed.
Right. Accelerating the innovation ecosystem. This is all about self-sustaining funding, R&D velocity, and this really tight industry synergy.
And when you see how these 3 systems overlap and feed each other, that tenfold cost difference starts to feel, less like a mystery and more like an achievement.
It starts to make logical sense.
Let's start with the foundation then, the people. The philosophy here, it's really striking. The documents we looked at frame this as something far bigger than just an HR drive or a recruitment campaign. It feels like a national resource mobilization.
It absolutely is. I mean, the mandate from the National Innovation-Driven Development Strategy explicitly states, and this is almost a direct quote, that the essence of being innovation-driven is being talent-driven.
So it's not secondary.
Not at all. For the nation's highest-ranking leaders, talent is unequivocally the first resource. That framing is it's crucial.
Why crucial?
Because it elevates the training and mobilization of skilled professionals to a strategic national security priority. It's not just an economic policy. And that sets the stage for a massive multi-decade transformation.
A shift away from the old model.
A complete shift, moving the economy away from its historic reliance on, cheap labor-based exports toward what they are aiming to be a true knowledge-based economy.
So if you establish talent as the first resource, the strategies that follow have to be huge. They have to be massive in scale and scope. What are the specific channels they're using to build this talent pool?
It's a really comprehensive approach. It's targeting 3 distinct flows of people. First, you just boost the output of the domestic education system on a massive scale.
Okay.
Second, you aggressively attract high-level overseas Chinese talent back home. They're often called the Hegi, or sea turtles.
The sea turtles, right.
And third, you create mechanisms to draw in foreign expertise. But honestly, the sheer scale of the domestic education reform, that's the one that promises the most long-term structural impact.
Okay, let's talk numbers then, because the scale you're talking about, it's almost hard to wrap your head around from a Western perspective.
The statistics are, they're staggering. I mean, the output of science and engineering S&E degrees granted by Chinese universities. It more than quadrupled in just the 15 years leading up to 2015.
Quadrupled from what to what?
We're talking about going from about 360,000 undergraduate S&E degrees in the year 2000 to a monumental 1.7 million in 2015.
Wow.
And this growth isn't even slowing down. Projections we've seen anticipate another 300% increase in graduates by 2030. This creates an unparalleled human reservoir for the AI and tech industries.
But here's the classic criticism, right? We've seen mass education drives before. And the argument from the West is often that this kind of volume game has to sacrifice quality. Are they addressing that? Is there a focus on quality control and, strategic alignment, not just pushing numbers through the system?
That's the critical question, and yes, they are. While observers definitely acknowledge that quality can be, let's say, highly unequal across the different tiers of universities, the intentionality behind the curriculum focus, especially at the top levels, is undeniable.
That's where the strategic alignment comes in.
Exactly. The Ministry of Education is orchestrating these pilot programs specifically to steer students away from more traditional fields and directly into areas of strategic national demand.
And what are those specific areas?
Well, the ones that are mentioned over and over are high-end chips, intelligence and science and technology, and advanced production techniques. It's curriculum engineering. It's designed to meet precise, projected national needs.
It's not just letting students choose whatever they want. It's a very strong signal.
It's an aggressive signal. It's structuring the entire educational pathway.
For me, the speed of this curriculum overhaul was one of the most compelling pieces of evidence. It really shows how top-down this whole strategy is.
It really does. It illustrates a radical, decisive approach. In just the last 2 years, roughly 1/5 of all higher education programs nationwide have been completely overhauled.
1/5?
Yes. That means majors have been cut, merged, or brand new ones have been introduced, all specifically to channel students directly into high-demand fields like artificial intelligence and integrated circuits ICs.
It's an aggressive re-engineering of the workforce supply chain.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So to make sure the quality is there for this enormous pipeline, they're also focusing their investment.
Absolutely. The government knows that high-quality, cutting-edge research requires concentrated funding and, talent magnets. The 2017 Double World-Class Project is the best example of this.
What did they do?
This initiative selected 42 top universities to receive substantial additional funding. And not just money, but preferential recruitment privileges for both faculty and students. The whole purpose is to create these globally competitive research centers.
And it's not just those top 42.
No, not at all. You see this broad institutional buy-in. We're talking 196 Chinese universities have reportedly launched new specialized AI-related efforts. It shows the prioritization of this tech across the entire system.
Okay, so that handles the domestic flow. But what about that high-level expertise that left? The Haegui, the sea turtles who went to, say, MIT or Stanford and then built careers in Silicon Valley. How are they getting that invaluable experienced expertise back home?
They're using formal, aggressive, and highly incentivized mechanisms. The most well-known of these is probably the 1,000 Talents Plan, or TTP.
And how successful has that been?
Well, its initial target was ambitious enough to recruit 2,000 experts, but it massively surpassed that. It successfully attracted around 7,000 experts.
And these weren't fresh graduates?
No. These were established professors, senior corporate researchers, leading figures in their specific technological domains, the real heavy hitters.
And it's not just patriotism bringing them back. I mean, the support structure seems designed to eliminate every single barrier to relocation. What does that look like in concrete terms?
It's designed to be irresistible. We're talking about huge financial packages, large signing bonuses, salaries that are often globally competitive, sometimes even better than what they might earn abroad.
And the practical stuff.
Critically, it's comprehensive support for the life logistics. Guaranteed housing allowances, generous subsidies, and guaranteed placement in high-quality schools for their children. Those are the friction points that often keep high-level talent abroad.
And they just neutralize them.
They try to, yes. And beyond the personal incentives, there's this whole infrastructure to integrate them back into the professional world.
What do you mean by infrastructure?
There's a dedicated physical infrastructure. They've set up networks of hundreds of returnee parks.
Returnee parks?
Yeah, they're not just office buildings. They're these dedicated complexes that act as intermediaries. They provide subsidized lab space, administrative support, networking, simplified access to government grants. They basically streamline the process for these experts to launch a new research institute or a high-tech company the moment they get back.
That sounds incredibly effective. But, talent is fluid. Not everyone wants to physically move back. Did the government adapt to that reality?
They did, and the strategy proved to be highly adaptive. They recognized that Chinese graduates, especially those with US PhDs in sensitive fields like AI, still had very high stay rates in places like the United States, something like 90% in the late 2010s.
So they weren't all coming back?
Not at all. So they pivoted. The government now actively encourages overseas citizens to serve China from abroad.
The diaspora option.
Exactly. It leverages that global network of talent even if a physical return isn't immediate. It ensures that knowledge transfer, investment, collaboration, all of it continues, regardless of where they are physically located.
So the net effect is always a contribution to the national goal. And finally, this isn't just about ethnic Chinese nationals, is it? They're actively trying to court non-Chinese foreign expertise as well.
That's the third prong, and it really confirms the ambition to become a true global innovation hub. They've focused on easing the bureaucratic friction. The Foreign Talents R Work visa was expanded back in 2017 to include leading experts in science and technology.
Which made it easier to qualify.
Much easier. It moved beyond just urgently needed talents to a broader recognition of leading S&T figures. And that was followed by a liberalization of permanent residency requirements in 2018.
So we have this massive, aggressively curated talent pipeline. These are the people who are motivated and strategically channeled into AI. But if they don't have, unrestricted access to the best chips in the world, the question remains, how do they do all this and achieve comparable performance while spending 1/10 on infrastructure? It suggests there's a radical layer of efficiency at play here.
It has to be.
Which brings us to our second pillar.
That 1/10 CapEx gap, it is absolutely closed through structural advantages and just radical efficiency. This is where you see highly sophisticated technical innovation meeting the cost benefits of national infrastructure.
And the prime example that illustrates this is DeepSeek.
Exactly. The story of DeepSeek is central to understanding this.
The cost figures they published for their V3 model, they were almost unbelievable to Western analysts. They claim to have trained their model for only $6 million US.
$6 million, and you compare that to estimates for a comparable Western model like GPT-4, which were topping $100 million.
That's a 16-fold difference. How is that real? Is it just cheaper labor or something?
Well, cheaper operational costs definitely play a part, but the core difference here is technical ingenuity. DeepSeek trained their models primarily using chips subject to export constraints, like the NVIDIA H800s.
Which are powerful, but not the top-of-the-line H100s.
Not at all. They're significantly less capable than the flagship A100s or H100s used in the US. So to get comparable performance with weaker hardware, they had to compensate with superior architectural optimization. It's the definition of technological self-reliance through engineering.
Okay, let's get into those technical strategies, because this is where the efficiency is really manufactured. This is where the mystery starts to dissolve. What were the key algorithmic changes?
The first major one is the widespread adoption, and really their specific implementation of the mixture of experts architecture, MoE. Think of training a giant language model as having a massive library of knowledge. In a traditional dense model, every single book in that library has to be open, read, and cross-referenced for every single query. It's a huge computational expense.
And MoE changes that.
Completely. MoE allows the model to be immense. DeepSeek V2 had 236 billion total parameters, but it only requires a tiny fraction of that, maybe 21 billion active parameters, to be activated for any given calculation.
So it's more efficient.
Radically more efficient. DeepSeek used a specific variant with shared experts for foundational stuff and routed experts for specialized tasks. So you get the intelligence of a massive model without paying the full computational price every single time. It's a huge economic win.
So you're running a marathon with lighter shoes. You can go faster for longer with less fuel. What's the second key innovation they used?
That would be multi-head latent attention, or MLA. To get this, you have to understand the memory bottleneck in these models. Every calculation requires the GPU to store huge amounts of information in what's called the KV cache. This cache eats up VRAM, the GPU's memory, which is often the biggest limiting factor.
More so than the raw compute speed.
Often, yes. So if the cache is too big, the GPU runs out of space, and you just can't run a large, powerful model efficiently.
So what does MLA do?
It uses a low-rank approximation, it's a sophisticated math technique, to significantly compress and reduce the size of that KV cache.
And the result?
Less memory usage means they can fit larger batch sizes or much longer sequences on the exact same restricted hardware. This boosts compute throughput and dramatically cuts down the time and power needed to train the model. It contributes directly to that $6 million training cost.
So this isn't just about using existing concepts. This is a highly optimized, low-level engineering approach aimed squarely at compensating for the limits imposed by sanctions.
It is the absolute definition of that, compensating for hardware limits with software ingenuity. And this optimization goes even deeper, into the hardware-software co-design. I mean, their technical reports detail an almost obsessive dedication to squeezing every last drop of performance from their chips.
Can you give us an example of that low-level stuff?
Sure. They leveraged mixed precision arithmetic. Typically, AI models use 32-bit floating point numbers. High precision, but lots of memory.
Right.
DeepSeek found they could do a lot of the calculation using custom 8-bit floating point numbers, specifically a format called 5e2m.
Wait, using 8-bit math sounds like you're intentionally degrading it. Why sacrifice precision?
Because you're trading a tiny, tolerable loss of mathematical precision for an enormous gain in speed and memory savings.
And that works.
It works because the training datasets are so huge and redundant that a slight drop in precision doesn't destroy the final result, but the memory savings let them keep the massive model size while dramatically increasing calculation speed on those restricted H800 chips. It's a brilliant trade-off.
And it goes even further than that, down to how the chips actually talk to each other.
Yes. They optimized communication between the large clusters of GPUs. They minimized latency by overlapping computation and communication. They even dedicated specific parts of the GPUs just for inter-GPU communication.
So the chips are never sitting idle.
Exactly. They're not waiting for data. They're running at their absolute peak efficiency, which reinforces that strategic goal, maximum throughput from the hardware you have.
This level of engineering ingenuity explains a huge part of the cost efficiency. But chips and algorithms are only one part of the infrastructure story. The other major leverage point is just the sheer availability of data.
Data is the fuel. And the next generation artificial intelligence development plan explicitly mandates coordinating and using big data infrastructure. It recognizes that massive, accessible, high-quality data is a core strategic asset.
And that coordinated access must create a huge commercial advantage for local companies.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at the commercial data streams. The sheer popularity and scale of domestic content, especially short videos, provides Chinese companies with this massive, unique, constantly refreshing horde of training material.
Which is locally relevant.
And that local data volume is so critical that analysis shows nearly all of the world's top image-to-video AI generation models have come from Chinese companies. That is not a coincidence.
And the way this data is acquired must also translate into speed, which brings up that anecdote about the software engineer in Shenzhen.
That story is a perfect illustration of this structural efficiency. So this engineer, he'd worked in Silicon Valley. He was used to rationing GPU hours. He moves back and starts working on driver assist tech.
And he needed data.
He needed vast amounts of real-world urban traffic data for his models. And what he found was that the highly integrated smart city infrastructure, the sensors, the public databases, all of it, allowed that data to be acquired almost instantly. He called it data on tap.
As opposed to the West, where it's all fragmented?
Exactly. Western competitors are often grappling with these disjointed data systems, requiring lengthy bureaucratic processes or expensive partnerships to get what they need.
And the result of that efficiency for him?
He could iterate, test, and refine his models 10 times faster than his competitors. That speed of iteration, enabled by state-level data integration, is a massive hidden component of cost efficiency. If you compress a year's work into a month, your CapEx for that project just plummets.
Okay, let's talk about the final piece of the infrastructure puzzle.
Yeah.
Power. Computing power, brain power, and electrical power.
This is so often overlooked, but it's strategically vital. Training these models consumes a gargantuan amount of energy. Analysts consistently point out that China leads the world in electrical power capacity.
And this is part of the national plan.
It is. The plan specifically calls for building a distributed and efficient energy internet to support this kind of high-demand infrastructure.
And the economic implication of having that capacity is profound.
It translates directly into lower operational expenditure, which feeds right back into that 1/10 cost figure. AI training requires chips to run 247 for months. The national policy supports this by providing subsidized industrial power rates for AI data centers.
So training is just cheaper.
Far cheaper than in many Western economies where energy prices are volatile. They can run their expensive chips freely, knowing the cost of continuous operation is stabilized and low.
So that intersection-optimized algorithms, integrated data, and subsidized power, it really does decode the mystery. They're using their national structural advantages to overcome a technical deficit imposed by sanctions.
That's it exactly. And this brings us to the final pillar, which is the machinery that sustains all this velocity, the ecosystem itself.
Right, the resilience and the funding mechanisms that allow R&D to thrive and commercialize innovation so rapidly.
And this ensures the whole effort is self-sustaining, not reliant on, say, volatile external capital.
This is a really crucial distinction when you compare it to the Western VC model. We hear a lot of concern about circular financing in the West investor money, just cycling through the same ecosystem without clear revenue streams.
Yeah.
But the Chinese AI leaders are primarily relying on internal cash flow.
Which is a fundamentally more self-sustaining and resilient model, especially for ventures that need long-term massive compute resources. And again, DeepSeek is the perfect case study.
It's owned by a hedge fund, right?
It's owned and funded by the highly successful hedge fund Highflyer. So the AI development arm had access to internal, stable cash flow. They completely bypassed the typical venture capital dependency.
And that internal funding allowed them to make these huge strategic moves, building a stable foundation.
Exactly. Highflyer used its internal reserves to accumulate a substantial amount of GPU resources early on. We're talking reportedly 10,000 NVIDIA A100 GPUs.
Before the really restrictive export controls took full effect.
Precisely. This preemptive investment ensured their AI development could proceed immediately with a massive, stable foundation of compute, independent of any external venture funding pressures. That structural stability is a huge advantage.
And moving from the funding to the output, the old narrative that China only focuses on manufacturing, not fundamental IP, has just been demolished by their R&D output.
The momentum is accelerating exponentially. The country is already second globally in the number of published tech papers and patents, but it's the growth rate that's the most telling factor. Chinese companies showed the fastest growth in US patent grants last year.
And we're seeing high-profile firms setting global benchmarks.
I mean, look at Huawei. Despite facing severe trade restrictions, they ranked 5th overall among commercial firms in US patent grants. And crucially, they're successfully monetizing this IP.
How much are we talking?
They generated a record $630 million in global patent licensing revenue last year. This shows the R&D isn't just academic. It's translating into protectable, commercial, globally valuable assets.
And again, this huge focus on IP isn't an accident. It's mandated.
It is. The next generation AI development plan dedicates specific attention to enhancing IPR protection. It calls for setting up a robust AI technology standard and IP system. This institutional framework ensures the colossal R&D output is managed, protected, and leveraged.
Okay, so let's look at how that R&D moves from the lab to the market, that synergy between universities and industry. This is where the talent pipeline we talked about really feeds the innovation engine.
We are seeing a profound shift in the function of academic institutions. University labs are now operating like pre-incubators or dedicated R&D arms for major corporations.
The funding is coming directly from industry.
Directly from corporate partners, giants like Huawei, electric vehicle manufacturers like XPeng, and they need immediate practical patents and commercial applications, not just long-term theoretical papers.
So the key performance indicator for a university lab isn't just a publication, it's a patent that can be used tomorrow.
Precisely. This creates this intense, streamlined pipeline that prioritizes generating tangible, immediately applicable innovation. It's a high-velocity system designed to minimize the delay between discovery and deployment.
And this velocity is key to maintaining self-sufficiency, even when you're faced with global competition for top minds. That anecdote about Professor Zhang's lab really highlighted this for me.
It's a perfect illustration of the ecosystem's resilience. So Professor Zhang ran this cutting-edge computer vision lab, which was essentially a direct development pipeline for his industry partners.
Right.
And his top PhD student gets recruited by a major foreign competitor, let's say NVIDIA's automotive department, a classic case of brain drain. But Professor Zhang was entirely pragmatic about it. He wasn't panicked because he knew the system was running so efficiently that it was constantly, in his words, churning out 10 more just like him.
Wow.
The velocity and volume of the talent pipeline, coupled with that immediate commercial alignment, it just ensures that the loss of one person, no matter how talented, is a manageable cost. The system itself is robust enough to withstand it.
And finally, this entire structure, this cost-efficient, high-speed ecosystem, is now enabling global expansion and disruption, particularly with strategies like DeepSeek's open-weight model releases.
By creating models at a fraction of the cost, DeepSeek's open-weight models have become a globally disruptive force. A significant part of their outreach is focused on emerging markets, especially in Africa.
What are they doing there?
They're offering affordable, less power-hungry AI solutions and actively supporting local startups in bolstering African language models.
That's strategically very important.
It's smart business and smart policy. It provides local data sovereignty and flexibility, which is highly appealing compared to some of the closed proprietary Western platforms. And this global outreach, it mirrors the domestic goal to apply AI broadly across all sectors of society.
And that application breadth is mandated to ensure constant domestic demand and feedback.
Yes. The plan explicitly mandates the application focus across critical sectors: intelligent education, medical care, urban operation, finance, manufacturing. By demanding this widespread application, the plan ensures a constant, massive source of demand and real-world testing data, which reinforces the entire ecosystem.
So if we synthesize this entire strategy, the end goal is crystal clear.
The ultimate national objective codified in the plan is sharp. Make major AI theoretical breakthroughs, reach globally advanced levels in technology and application, and crucially, become a global AI innovation center by 2030. Every single policy element we've discussed is calibrated to meet that specific deadline.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive. To go back to my friend from the beginning, that venture capitalist. The mystery of achieving high performance at 1/10 the cost, it's definitively solved by recognizing this is not a traditional market competition.
It is a highly integrated national strategy where every decision reinforces the ultimate goal of efficiency and speed.
The first pillar is the human capital, a massive, aggressively curated talent pool, engineered through top-down educational reform, constantly flowing directly into these prioritized AI sectors.
The second pillar is that radical technical and operational efficiency. You have the innovation in algorithms like MOE and MLA compensating for restricted hardware, and that's coupled with these unparalleled cost advantages from national infrastructure, massive accessible data, and subsidized power that just slash training costs.
And the third layer is that self-sustaining high-speed ecosystem, innovation driven by stable internal funding, bypassing the volatility of traditional VCs, and accelerated by these aggressive university-industry partnerships that are focused on immediate commercial application.
This confluence of forces means the traditional metrics of AI leadership relying solely on, established models or unrestricted access to the best chips are being fundamentally challenged. They're being challenged by a system that is optimized for scale, velocity, and cost. The fundamental physics of innovation, the cost, the speed, and the scale required to compete at the highest level. All of it has been rewritten through this coordinated technological pivot.